Hi everyone, my name is Lynne Miles. I'm the Programme Director for City Access at the Greater Cambridge Partnership. I'm going to take a moment to talk you through some of the findings that we're publishing now from our Making Connections consultation, which was held in autumn to winter of last year. We've just published the results, and this is just a small selection of what we found to let you know the headlines. The full report's available online, so do please go and take a look at it. You may remember that we went out to consult between October and December last year on a series of propositions to make travelling around Greater Cambridge more attractive, more reliable and more sustainable by buses and by other sustainable travel modes. And there were three elements to the proposals that we went out to the public to talk about. The first is a transformation of the bus network, a huge injection of money of around 50 million a year, which will transform the bus network by adding new services, by increasing the frequency of service, increasing operating hours on core services so that people working irregular hours can still get to and from work, reducing bus fares and improving the quality of service in terms of information, ticketing that works across different operators, and various other improvements. So that's the first element, a big investment in the bus network. The second element was a big investment in sustainable travel schemes. And so that's improvements to the quality of walking, cycling and wheeling facilities in and around Greater Cambridge over and above what's already being planned. That includes things like maintaining facilities and making sure that roads and cycleways are good, more segregated routes, making public space and pedestrian space better in the city centre, making sure all the things that support people to walk and cycle are there. So good storage facilities and so on, good wayfinding. So that's the second element. And that's a pot of around 15 million a year, variable over time, to invest in that. And those two things would be delivered by the third element of the consultation, which was creating a sustainable travel zone, which would be a road user charge, operational Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. And that road user charge would do two important things, each of which are as important as the other in delivering the first two benefits. The first is that it generates an income stream that you can invest in those things and use them to fund those things. And so it should generate a large net revenue after costs, which is an ongoing source that the area can choose to prioritise and spend in the way that it wants on delivering those services, which aren't, delivering services that go above and beyond what can be commercially provided in some current circumstances. And the second thing that it does, which is just as important, is it takes traffic off the road and reduces congestion, which would allow buses to be faster and more reliable. Because what we know from previous consultations is that people consistently tell us that if they're to shift from cars to buses, they need to know they're reliable, they need to know that they're frequent enough that they can get them without having to plan their whole day around them. And they need to know that when they get on a bus, it's going to get them where they want to go, approximately when they expected to get there. And the congestion is one of the key factors that makes the bus network difficult to deliver, more expensive to deliver and less reliable, because those buses get stuck in the same traffic as cars, and that makes them really difficult to run. So creating the revenue, creating the road space to allow buses, cycling and walking to be genuinely better alternatives than car, so that people feel they have a genuine good choice to make and they don't feel that they're either stuck making car journeys without any other choice, or that if they don't have a car or access to a car, that they're just stuck and not very well served by the current circumstances. So that was a set of proposals we put out. We had a huge response to the consultation. The biggest by volume element of our consultation was the survey that we did. More than 24,000 people responded to that. We asked a range of questions. We asked people both whether they supported or opposed the various elements of the scheme that were put forward, but we also asked them, just as importantly, what they thought about those proposals. And so we allowed a huge amount of space for people to freely give their feedback in terms of their concerns, their suggestions, the things they'd like to see done differently, the elements of it that were most important to them. And that gave us around 145,000 chunks of free text comments, which we've been working through decoding, analysing, making sure we understand to deliver this report that we're just publishing now. But the consultation was actually much more than just a public survey. As well as that, and embedded in the report alongside it, is a huge amount of information we collected from targeted outreach meetings with groups that we know we tend less often to hear through public consultation exercise, making sure we're hearing a variety of voices. We held stakeholder meetings with representative groups of various kinds. We received formal submissions from lots of organisations and groups. And we also did some demographically representative opinion polling as well. So there was a huge range of evidence there. And the report tries to bring all those elements of evidence together and understand what they tell us. We got the biggest ever response to any consultation exercise we've ever undertaken, and the biggest ever youth response to any consultation we've ever undertaken. And we're really grateful for everyone who took the time to tell us what they think. Just a note on who did respond to the survey. Compared to the background population, on average, our consultation respondents were a little bit older than average. So although we got a great youth response, people under 25 are still relatively underrepresented in the survey. People responding to the survey were more likely to be in work, either employed or self-employed, or in education than the background population, and therefore less likely to be out of work, whether retired or being stay-at-home parents or otherwise out of the workforce. They were otherwise broadly similar to the population's characteristics. They were more likely to be from Greater Cambridge, by which we mean the City of Cambridge and the district of South Cambridgeshire. And they were more likely to feel very strongly about the proposals one way or the other than the background population. And that's all exactly what you'd expect from a consultation survey, where what we do is we go out and ask people to come and tell us their opinions, and the ones that have the strongest opinions often tend to do that. That's exactly what you expect to hear in a consultation. That's what we want to hear. We want to know what people think about the consultation proposals. So coming on to some of the headline results, this is just a snippet of what's in the report, but leading you through 70% of people who responded to the consultation survey support that vision for a doubling of the bus network. That's a mixture of service improvement and fares. There's really strong support for that vision as set out. This is just a sample of some of the coding that we did, of the free text responses that people did. There's much more detail underneath this, but in general, the sort of top thing people tell us in terms of asking for additional feedback on the bus proposals is sort of general statement of support. After that, the support is for more frequent bus services, making sure that we deliver cheaper bus fares, making sure the service is reliable and punctual, and sort of observations that existing bus services don't serve their need, and improvements are needed, and it needs to be done quickly. And then rural bus service is the next one after that. And the report sets out in more detail a bit more of the themes around some of those. Then we come on to how people feel about the vision for the active travel in the public space, so the sustainable travel interventions. As you can see, we asked about all of the different elements there that might be invested in. There's broad support for delivering investment in all of those elements, as you can see here from the chart. So again, people telling us that they do want the bus vision as set out, and they do want the sustainable travel investment as set out. When you come on to ask people whether they support the STZ proposal as the means of delivering those improvements, 34% of people say they do support it, and 58% of people oppose or strongly oppose the proposals there. A couple of things to say about this. Number one is that what you see here is some quite strongly polarised opinion, and so what we're getting is a real sort of diverse range of views from this survey, with lots of people feeling strongly one way or the other. Not shown here, but if you compare this to the background opinion polling we did that's set out in the report, you find that a slightly sort of more muted response to that. The response looks broadly more like a similar amount supporting, and the remainder sort of slightly more evenly split between oppose and don't know. And that suggests again that there's just there are a lot of people with strong opinions responding to this survey, which is helpful because we get to understand what those people with strong opinions do and don't like about what we've proposed. When you ask people in our consultation survey, around 70% of them say they feel strongly one way or the other. In the representative polling, it was more like 34% who feel strongly one way or the other. So that's just a sort of sample of people's sentiment. If you break down that support, and this is back to our consultation survey by age, you see quite a marked trend of much higher support amongst young people for the Sustainable Travel Zone proposal as the means of delivering the benefits. Support then declines with age groups. The age group least likely to support the STZ proposals is 55 to 64. And support starts to tick up again amongst older people, 65. And then in the 75 and above age category, that's the first category after 25 to 34 to be more supportive than average. So you can see those age patterns there with stronger support amongst the younger and the older parts of the population. When we break down by geography, there's also higher support for the STZ proposal from people that live inside rather than outside the zone. This data is based on the people that gave us information about where they live, so that's not the whole of the sample. It's about 75% of the people that answered the survey told us where they live. But from those 75%, you were more likely to support the zone if you lived inside than outside the zone. And then the last thing to say is there's a lot more detail on this in the report, but there are lots of people that told us either through the free text comments in the survey or through the representative opinion polling that there are some split opinions out there. There are certainly some people out there that fundamentally object to the STZ proposals and will not be convinced by any changes that you make to the scheme, and that's really clearly stated by many people. In the opinion polling, though, we found that from those that said they opposed the zone, around half of those that said they opposed the zone said there were changes that could be made that would make them feel differently about the zone. And that's borne out by the comments that we see in the consultation survey free text comments, where people are expressing concerns about a handful of headline things that might make them change their mind about the zone. And the top things cited there are the charge rate, the boundaries of the scheme, considering changes to the discounts and exemptions proposed, and considering different hours of operation of the zone. And so when we look at that information we've got there, there's a sort of series of challenges to be balanced for decision makers going forward, how to balance the genuine sort of expressed concerns about the proposals to develop a sustainable travel zone with the clearly expressed support for trying to deliver the vision set out there. And the last thing to add, this slide shows whether or not people support the bus vision, broken down by whether or not they support the zone. And that top bar there shows you that even amongst people who strongly oppose the zone, just under half still do want that bus vision to be delivered. And amongst those who said they oppose the zone, that number rises to almost 80%, just over 75%. And so that's a big chunk of people who I think are telling decision makers quite clearly that they have concerns about the zone and the way that it's set out, but they also do want some change to happen. And so the real value of this consultation, and again, we thank everyone for the insight they've given us, is it gives us a much more rich and actionable set of insights than simply how people feel about the specific proposal we've put forward. It gives us a huge amount of data to try to understand what people do and don't like about the proposals and what that means for how you go forward. Next steps will be for the Joint Assembly to consider this information at its meeting on the 8th of June, and they will make a recommendation to the Executive Board then about whether and how they want to proceed on the basis of what they've heard from this consultation. But for now, we're really pleased to be able to share the findings of this. We thank everyone who participated for doing so, and we hope you enjoy getting into the detail of what we've learned. Thanks for listening.